Neither the Central Intelligence Agency nor the Defense Intelligence Agency will comment on what the Russians are doing at Yamantau Mountain. There's not a lot we could say without venturing into the classified realm, CIA spokesman Mike Mansfield said. It's hard to discuss it with any specificity. In a U.S. satellite photograph of the Yamantau Mountain, that was taken on October 16, 1997, clearly recognizable signs of excavation can be seen at the areas marked Yamantau Mountain and Mezgori. The two above-ground support cities, each housing 30,000 workers, located at Beloretsk and Turliansky can also be seen. The very little that is known publicly about the site comes from Soviet-era intelligence officers, who defected to Great Britain and the United States. In public testimony before a House Armed Services Subcommittee last October, KGB defector Colonel Oleg Gordievsky said the KGB had maintained a separate, top-secret organization, known as Directorate 15, to build and maintain a network of underground command bunkers for the Soviet leadership, including the vast site beneath Yamantau Mountain. And what is interesting was that President Yeltsin and Russia's new democratic leaders are using those facilities, and the same service is still running the same facility, like it was 10, 15 years ago. Colonel Oleg Gordievsky Yamantau Mountain is so secret that only a handful of Russian government officials know about it, says Republican Kurt Weldon, RPA, who speaks Russian and travels frequently to Russia, chairing a congressional working group that discusses strategic issues with counterparts from the Russian Duma. I ask the Russians about it every time I meet with them. We've never had a straight answer. Weldon got interested in Yamantau Mountain in 1995 when he saw a public report suggesting it was a vast mining project. I went to Moscow and spoke with the Deputy Interior Minister who was in charge of mining, Weldon says. I asked him if there was any mining activity there. He just shook his head and said he had never heard of it. So I mentioned the other name the Russians use for it, Mezgori. He said he hadn't heard of that either. Then he sent an aide out to check. 20 minutes later, the aide came back, visibly shaken. He said they couldn't say anything about it. Weldon also met with Andrei Kokoshkin, a former deputy defense minister, in charge of President Yeltsin's National Security Council. Kokoshkin called it a public works project, and said there was nothing to worry about, since the Defense Ministry had no involvement in it. So I brought out a copy of the Defense Ministry's budget. It's only a few pages long, and showed him the line item for Mezgori. He smiled and said it must be for bridges, roads and schools. When I then asked if I could see it, he said that could only be arranged through Yeltsin. The site was controlled directly by the president. Weldon then tried sending a 3-page letter to Yeltsin in Russian. I told him all the things I was trying to do to foster better U.S.Russia understanding, but said that I couldn't help if they couldn't clear up something as important as this. He never replied. The cause for concern among many in the U.S. is that the U.S. is currently sending hundreds of millions of dollars to Russia, supposedly to help that country dismantle old nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, the Russian parliament has been complaining that it cannot pay $250 million in back wages owed to its workers at the same time that it is spending money to comply with new strategic arms reduction treaties.